Hello and welcome to Comprehension Points Video Snark. I read bad books so that you don't have to. I'm starting a new book, A Touch of Darkness by Scarlet St. Clair. I don't exactly have some grand reasoning for this aside from other people saying that they were beyond disappointed by this book. Before this begins, I just wanted to take a moment to say that this book was supposed to be a Persephone Hades retelling, and that I'm usually a fan of these sort of stories. However, I feel like the author would be pressed to find somebody who wasn't at least a little familiar with this story in this day and age. There are so many retellings of it floating around out there. So let's get down to it, shall we? Chapter Unis. Because I guess even the chapter titles have to be weird and pretentious. Is this Greek or Roman? Who knows? Should we call them Proserpina and Pluto? But I guess looking up Greek numbers would have been hard. I haven't even started actually reading and I'm already annoyed. So this is a modern-day retelling of the Hades Persephone myth, in case you somehow missed any of that. But Persephone is a bright-eyed college student in New Greece. Yeah, I'm not touching that. But anyway, she's got an internship at Acropolis in New Athens. Why is everything in this book new? Persephone knows of Hades if only by reputation alone. Since he is also somewhat associated with precious metals, he's known as one of the richest gods. He owns a bunch of casinos where you don't bet money or poker chips, but rather your soul. Persephone thinks that it's weird that people would literally gamble away their soul, and weirder still that Hades would want souls, especially because all souls would eventually end up with him sooner or later. Persephone had been drawn to Alexis' edginess. She had tattoos, hair as black as night, and a love of the goddess of witchcraft, Hecate. So, a few thoughts. The first being, so we're drawing the line of edgy at has tattoos and black hair. The second being, in a world where Hades is literally a person who is just walking around, why is worshipping Hecate somehow also considered edgy? I would love it if this book was like, no, they were just lesbian lovers, but I feel like that would be expecting a lot. Anyway, as I mentioned, this is also a modern retelling of this story, so Persephone texts her friend Lexa, who is hounding her to get drunk to celebrate Persephone landing the internship. Persephone seems more like a homebody, more content with lattes than shots. But I guess the plot has to start somewhere, and it doesn't take a genius to figure out who she's going to meet when Lexa inevitably drags her to a club. Her weeks were packed, school on Monday, Wednesday, and Thursday, and up to 3 hours each day at her internship. Honey, if you think that's a packed schedule, have I got some bad news for you. Persephone loses herself in some schoolwork before Alexis shows up at the cafe, says that she knows a guy who had reservations for Nevernight, Hades' nightclub, but he can't make it. Persephone also mentions some of the stuff that the other gods do, like Dionysus makes wine and Aphrodite is a fashion designer. However, the thought of going to Hades' nightclub sends Persephone tumbling down a rabbit hole of explanation. As she usually is in recent adaptations, Demeter is an over-controlling jerk of a mother who smothers Persephone with overprotection. Persephone has never been properly introduced to the gods, although they know that Demeter does have a daughter. This entire time, Persephone has just been living as immortal, and she doesn't want to change that because the gods would judge her. As she reflects on her status as an unkissed virgin, she also thinks about how a lot of the relationships between the gods are nothing but shows of political power. Their marriages mean nothing to most of them, and mortals are out too because Mommy Dearest says so. As Persephone tries to give excuses as to why she can't go, she also explains to the readers that all gods have horns, which, okay. This is going to be one of those sparkling vampire things all over again, isn't it? Where the author thinks that she's adding something unique to the story, but the reality is that it's just stupid. Persephone uses magic to hide her horns, but she's worried that Hades would see right through the spell. But Lexa is quick to point out that gods never actually run their own businesses. Lexa briefly mentions that Demeter stopped by to see her daughter's room. Lexa hadn't told Persephone about her mother's visit because she'd been under the assumption that Demeter would have called her daughter or gone to see her later, but that never happened, which leads Persephone to the thought that her mom must be looking for something. As the waitress comes back to collect Persephone's used mug, Persephone catches the girl's hand and tells the girl not to say anything to Demeter. Demeter likes to send nymphs to spy on her daughter, and this was one of them. The chapter ends with Persephone telling the reader that she can't make anything grow, and if the wilted browning flowers on the table are any indication, she actually just kills plants faster. Yeah, I'm not calling the Latin names the entire time. I don't speak Latin. Chapter 2. The chapter opens on describing Nevernight. It's the tallest building in the city, and Demeter often remarks it is to remind people that you cannot escape death. However, I have an opinion about the building that would make Freud insanely happy, but I'm not so sure that YouTube would like it much if I said it, so we'll have to leave it to your imaginations. Persephone is left standing in line alone as Alexa goes to talk to some girl she knows. She feels exposed in the dress she borrowed from Lexi. And as the word pink was thrown out there, I can't help but wonder if this wasn't in any way inspired by lore Olympus. Persephone is also worried that her mother will find out about this and punish her. In fact, Demeter had a whole plot in the greenhouse dedicated to punishment. Every flower that grew there had been a nymph, a king, a creature that had incurred her wrath. I am so freaking tired of these portrayals as Demeter as some angry harpy all of the time. Lexa joins her again and implies that Hades is in the house tonight. Persephone panics at the thought of Hades seeing hers, of seeing her horns and being drawn to a goddess he doesn't know, but there's some small part of her that kind of wants to meet him even if she won't admit it to Lexa. They're interrupted from this conversation by an incident at the front of the line, some mortal attempting to get the soul of his wife or girlfriend back. Lexa says that there's always one, but it makes it sound like she's bored with the topic. Their girls are given entrance. As they undergo a security checkpoint, Persephone flashes back to a conversation she had with Lexa about the club's strict no-phone policy. Hades doesn't like phones anywhere near him and would punish people if they found out that someone had snuck a photo of him. A broken phone, black belt from Nevernight, and a write-up in a gossip magazine. Oh no, anything but the gossip magazine, anything but that! Sarcasm. At the bar, they meet Adonis, who takes them to his table. There they meet Xerxes, Arrow, and Sybil. And is this just going to be a constant parade of who's who in Greek mythology? I'm exhausted by this already. They make small talk and introduce these other characters. In case you aren't familiar with Greek mythology, the too long didn't read version is that Sybil is a famous oracle and she was cursed by Apollo. In the story, Sybil is attending college to become an oracle and Apollo is looking at her in what kind of sounds like a romantic way because of this. As the group chit-chats, Persephone's gaze is drawn to a mysterious man standing on a balcony and overlooking the main floor. He's also watching her, and Persephone can't take her eyes off from him. I'll give you 3 guesses as to who this is, and the first 2 don't count. Except that Persephone doesn't actually know who the guy is, but come on, this isn't my first romance novel. No man outside of the romantic lead is ever described in such detail. Ugh. After a moment, the others notice Persephone's gaze up toward the balconies. The others who have been to the club before tell her that it's where Hades does his deals. It's not just the souls that he barters with like Persephone had originally heard, but something a little different. The mortal comes over with a request like love. If they lose at the gambling table, Hades forces them to give up their vices, which Hades can apparently see. So a drunk is asked to give up drinking, and so on. If they can't give up their vice, then their soul belongs to Hades. Lexa pulls Persephone into the bathroom where she gushes over how hot Adonis is. Like, calm down, girl. You met him 5 minutes ago, and now you want to have his babies? He's hot, sure, but what about his personality? Ugh. After Persephone uses the restroom, she can't find Lexa. Just outside the bathroom, she finds a woman who tells her that somebody matching Lexa's description went upstairs, and then the woman tells Persephone the password to get upstairs as well. There's a gorgon guarding the entrance up, and she instantly knows that Persephone is a goddess. She utters the password and continues on. She's drawn to a card table, and the man from the balcony comes over. He's described in further detail, and we get it! He's hot and he smells good. Move on, please. He asks her why she's come, but she refuses to accept her answer of Lexa was on the list. Instead, Persephone says that she felt like rebelling, but now that she's there, she's second-guessing herself. He briefly mentions Minthi as the woman who interrupted their weird staring match earlier, and Persephone tries to leave. However, he insists that he'd promised he'd teach her how to play cards, so they do that. And this is another one of those, oh my god, get to the point moments. So much time is spent describing them playing cards that my eyes turn into donuts. That is to say, glazed. After teaching her the basics, he then makes tiny bets with her to get some more answers from her. Who is she rebelling against? Her mother. Why? Because she makes me mad. The man is kind of frustrated over her short answers and makes a promise about remembering it for the future. Persephone doesn't have the heart to tell him that she doesn't plan on ever coming back to the club. Persephone then says that she doesn't understand why it is that people would come and risk everything to gamble against Hades. He says that it's the possibility of winning that has people doing it. He then says that he is Hades, and Persephone runs off in fright. But once outside, Persephone calms down a little as she thinks over their encounter. No, the worst part is that there was a side of her, a side she never knew existed until tonight, that wanted to run back inside, find him, and demand a lesson on the anatomy of his body. I had to read this, and so do you. Overall, I'm still in that undecided part of the story. Right now, I can say that it's obvious that the author did her research, which is way more than I can say for a lot of others who have attempted similar stories. However, a lot of people's criticism for this book stems from the relationship between Hades and Persephone, and that's obviously just barely gotten started. Thanks for listening to my book Snark on YouTube. New videos are up every Monday, but stick around because I sometimes drop random videos on other days too. Just as a reminder, even if you can't financially support me, there are other ways to support me. The first is watching this video as well as all my other videos. It's also important to like and subscribe. Finally, you can share this video with all of your friends so that they can help as well. If you're already caught up with all of my videos, you can go to Tumblr for my main book Snarks, always free and updated every morning. And if you've already read all of my main Snarks, you can find even more Snark on my Patreon. You can access it for $1 a month. Plus, you also get early access to my main Tumblr Snark. Special thanks to Dawn, Phoebe, and Nikki for supporting me on Patreon already. If you want to hear your name in my video next week, either support me on Patreon or make a one-time donation. Do you like my Snark so much that you want me to snark your writing? I do that too. For just $3 per chapter, I will tell you how awful that your writing is. But not to worry if you feel like you couldn't take the criticism. I also offer regular book editing as well. $3 for every 5,000 words. You can contact me on any of my social media platforms if you have further questions. If you want to read some of the things that I've written, you can purchase my works on Amazon. I have a slew of erotic short stories and now 2 full-length novels. I also sometimes run flash sales on my stories, and if you don't follow me on any social media, you might want to do so just so you can know when I might be offering more things for free. Links for everything will be posted below. See you next week, guys.